That's the one. And that might explain the silly attire that I'm wearing here tonight, because some of you might have asked.
His isn't stiff anymore.
Yeah, it's been a few years. Yeah. I'm
See
over 40 now.
See
40
the
plus.
T-shirt?
That was the best birthday present I ever got. I got it on my 30th birthday, this outfit, from my very good friends who are here tonight somewhere. And this was Freddie's 40th birthday, wasn't it?
This was Freddie's 40th. There were...
And you appear to have a fondness for hats.
Well, no, Freddie had a fondness for hats, so everybody had to have a fondness for hats.
But yours the biggest one, right?
Well, no, Jim's is quite big as well.
Maybe we first explain who we see in this picture, because there is a completely different set of people, isn't it?
That one on the end. Then Jim,
who's gone with the wind.
No, and actually on top of it is Miss Piggy.
Ah!
With the pink and everything, she was on there. Then Jim Hutton, who was with Freddie through to the end from 1985.
Mm-hmm.
Freddie.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Claudia,
mm-hmm.
and the one in yellow down below is Jim, husband and wife. He was the manager.
Ah.
He was Jim Beach.
That's Jim Beach?
Yeah, that's Jim Beach, and that's Claudia. Ah. And then Mary.
Mary Austin.
Yeah.
We familiar from the film, if you've seen the film? Lifetime friend, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they lived together for 6 years.
Yeah.
So, and then Peter Straker, who was
musical,
absolutely
singer,
amazing.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, Freddie loved having them around because the two of them together, just non-stop laughing and laughing and laughing. And in the middle, down below, is Joe Frenelli.
Ah, the cook, right? Joe was the cook.
Now, here we go with the convoluted story. Joe, Freddie met Joe in 1978 in Springfield, Massachusetts or whatever, in America, on tour. And he brought him back to London. It was going to be the big love of his life. And it lasted about a year. But the thing is, Freddie had a very guilty conscience. A lot of what he did was because he felt guilty. He had brought Joe from America, uprooted him, brought him to England, and then he just got tired. And so he was not going to just send him back. So Freddie actually sorted out his work permits and everything, and found him work in restaurants, different restaurants that Freddie would go to. And so he worked, and then in 1985, he then started working for Freddie.
Okay.
Jim, from 85 through to 91. All the hats, actually yes, all of the hats were created by Diana Mosley, who actually did all of Freddie's outfits from his first solo video, which was first solo video.
Living on My Own? No.
Living on My Own.
Yeah.
When he had the first military type jacket.
Oh no, was that Living on My Own? No, it wasn't.
First one.
Was it? He's the geek. I Was Born to Love You.
Oh, I Was Born to Love You.
That was the one. Yeah.
And she designed, and from that time, she designed basically every costume that he had. And she created and made all of these hats. The one Joe's got on is absolutely amazing because you take...
It's a hat box, right?
No, it was actually a chocolate box.
A chocolate box, yeah.
And you take the top off and it was full of chocolates. And people would help themselves, and then he'd have to go back and fill it up again. And
That's why he's down on his knees, maybe.
Yes, so that he's easy to
approach.
Yes. Another nice little story for this party. There were actually 200 people at this party. Everybody wearing some form of headgear.
It was at home at Freddie's
in
Garden Lodge
house.
in London, right?
It
at
was
his
in
private
his house.
Yeah.
And the thing that I loved was the fact that you have to think of Freddie's house, and there was crystal everywhere, there was art, there was things everywhere, but he didn't move anything. Everything was in its place because he just trusted the people that were coming. He knew that nothing would end up in someone's pocket. So 200 people, and he knew, I think basically, maybe not 200, but he knew about 180 of them. Because there were dancers from the Royal Ballet, there were people from all walks of life. And it was about midnight, and you have to think, Garden Lodge, it had state-of-the-art doorbells and things. You push the doorbell, and the camera goes on inside so you can see who's outside. So, the doorbell went, it was about midnight. And I was between, there were two places you could open the door. And I was between, and I saw there were two people there. But Wayne Sleep, a ballet dancer who was a very good friend of Freddie's, he was actually there, and he just pushed the buzzer to open the gate. Because he thought, well, look, they've got hats on, they must be for the party. And they had these nice police helmets on. So I got to the door, and as these two gentlemen walked down the path, yes, we're from the Metropolitan Police, sir. Oh, well, neighbours are complaining about the noise. Oh, okay, so no, certainly we'll do something about it. Please, come in, have something to eat.
Have some chocolate.
You know, have food, drink, whatever you want, you know. And they did, they came in for half an hour. They were fine, they were really, really good. And then they left, and we didn't turn the music down. So, no, it was fine. It was just the way Wayne just pushed it, because he thought, you know, oh, hats, they're coming.
One thing that I would like to ask you about, I mean, if we see a situation like this where Freddie was very private and with his friends and confidence and wearing silly hats and stuff, so in a private situation...
he was crazy.
He was just himself,
yes.
But even... and absolutely not afraid of gay connotations or whatsoever.
No. This is the thing, he never ever hid it. Never. Freddie Mercury would go to the bars every single night. And he wouldn't have dark glasses on, he wouldn't have a big scarf, there was never any sort of disguise or anything. But there's no photographs of him going into bars or him in bars. Because he really respected the press. And to a degree, up until the last 2 years of his life, they respected him. He never would get Roxy to call them and say, look, Freddie's in this shop. If you go there now, you can get a good photograph of him coming out. And he never did anything like that. You know, he wanted his own life. He would do interviews for new album, new tour, new video. He would do all of that, but he would never use them. There was one prime example was we were in New York in a restaurant. There were 6 of us, and we just walked in. It was a normal restaurant. And then, I don't know, half an hour later, Rod Stewart came in. Saw Freddie, came over and sat down. Have a drink. Then he got up, went to a telephone, made a phone call, and came back again. Then again, about half an hour later, he got up and went, I'm going now, I'll go. And he went, and there were about 50 photographers outside. because he'd called his PR to make sure that they could come and get a good photograph of him. And Freddie never understood why people did that. Not, He knew that he was public property outside of Garden Lodge, but that didn't mean that he had to advertise the fact that he was out and about. As I say, he would go out every single night, and there was never a photograph.
And we have to add, I mean, if he was out like in a gay bar, which you obviously were a lot of times back then, and these were times when homosexuality, and especially male homosexuality, was still treated totally different
in the,
than today.
I mean, very early, in the sort of
70s,
late 70s. You have to remember it was 1968 that it became, well, no, it stopped being illegal.
Yeah.
Because even then there were strict rules and regulations. I mean, two men could have sex together in a room as long as the door was locked and nobody else was in the room. That was okay. But otherwise, the police could arrest you.
But again, Freddie wasn't absolutely not afraid with any
and
gay...
you look at him doing interviews and things, and he didn't care. He didn't pretend to be anything other than who he was.
As we see in these pictures, these are examples that I find pretty striking, because there we see, on the left we see Freddie wearing a shirt with a Tom of Finland style illustration, which I did a little research there, which is apparently a logo from a Munich gay leather community in Munich, but the Münchner Löwen Club was their name, I think. Yeah. And he was proudly wearing that logo on stage. Another example on the right, this black vest saying Mineshaft. And the Mineshaft was apparently this very notorious gay sex club in New York.
In New York.
Yeah. Back in the day, of course, we didn't have internet. People didn't have internet, and you couldn't just Google it up and see what it actually is.
No.
But he was actually wearing this shirt. If you look closely, he's wearing this vest in the video for "Don't Stop Me Now."
Yeah, and the thing is, you also see him in, I don't know which video, or actually on tour maybe. He's got a T-shirt with Wear, W-E-A-R,
yes,
which is from West Hollywood. It's a shoe shop, but it was mainly gay people in there. I mean, everybody who worked there was, and most of the people who went were.
I found another really interesting...
the Works Bar in New York.
Yes.
He's got a T-shirt with The Works. That's another
I
bar.
always thought that was promo for the Queen of the Works.
That was
interesting.
No, promo for the bar in New York.
See? Things you learn. Another really interesting example I found is this one here. Well, this shows Freddie, I would say around maybe 78, 79-ish, so probably roughly around the time when he started working for him.
Yeah, the hair says that.
And he's wearing a shirt saying Knolle Berlin. And Knolle Berlin was a gay leather club in Berlin, of course, somewhere in Schöneberg, Bundesallee, which it doesn't exist anymore, and there's hardly anything to be found on the internet. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, maybe sometime in the 70s or 80s. I don't know.
They're all young.
It doesn't exist anymore.
They're too young.
But there again, I'm asking myself, if he's wearing these shirts, he must have been to those places and actually bought them there, or is it more of a
not
fashion
necessarily?
statement?
Someone else could have bought it for him.
Okay.
He might have been there, seen it, and then sent someone to buy it.
But that implies that
But,
he's
he'd been in just about all the bars, yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So I was asking myself, I mean, the SCHwuZ, the club we're sitting in right now, exists from 1977 on at different spots in Berlin. It wasn't always here in Rollbergstraße. So do you think it would have been possible that Freddie might have been at the SCHwuZ sometime in the early 80s?
Yeah, not when I was on tour, but he could have been here 85 I did Europe. 86 he could have been here, because they toured the big stadiums
But
in
you weren't with them.
1986.
You
No,
didn't
I
go
was
with them.
living in Garden Lodge at that point.
Ah,
I was having a good
for
life.
you.
No, I actually lived in Freddie's house 9 months more than he did. Because the house was finished after 5 years of reconstruction. And Freddie did not want it to be like a prison. He wanted as little security as he could get away with. And so the insurance company said, okay, you have to have this, 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 but you also have to have someone living there permanently. And so I got the job of living there permanently. And I moved in 6 months before he did.
But all of the other tours, you were with them,
Yes,
literally
up
with
until
him
85.
whenever he...
Up until 85,
Yeah.
wherever Freddie was, I was.
Do you have any particular memories about touring Berlin, maybe? Something that comes to your mind when thinking of staying in Berlin with Queen?
Just there was one amazing party.
That's the stories we want to hear.
No, it was done by the promoter.
Oh, okay.
Who was the promoter back then? In 83, 84, something like that.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. And that's
Do you know where it was? Do you know where it was?
No.
It must have been West Berlin back then?
Yes, yes, yes. And that's where I met Romy Haag. And that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
Because she was very good friends with Freddie.
Romy
He'd
Haag?
known her for years beforehand. Yeah, I mean, no, the thing is, whenever you have that sort of a party, it's... Freddie stayed for an hour or two, but then he went out to the bars.
Oh, yeah.
He was happier, I mean, with just maybe 3 or 4 people in a corner in a bar, watching what's going on. The thing is, you have to also remember, he was 175 centimetres. So if he was in black, in a corner, you wouldn't see him. You know, because he was not tall. And he could always put himself
disappear.
Yeah. And he just loved watching what was going on.
Speaking of watching what is going on, this is one of my favorite pictures. This was actually taken in Munich, I would think.
It was
mid-80s.
in the Deutsche Eiche.
Deutsche Eiche in München. And we see Freddie framed by 2 beautiful, gorgeous
people.
Beauties. Yeah. One of them is Barbara Valentin, famous German actress, and not the one with the moustache. Just to give you a hint. But who is she on the left?
Yeah. What can I say? Fasching.
But you look gorgeous. But you
look drunk. Probably because I was.
That's how all of us are going to look like in 3 hours from now.
I tell you, it was, no, Munich was something amazing. It was a place for work originally, but he just spent his time enjoying himself in the end. The thing is, when Freddie went to record his solo album, Mr. Bad Guy, he was going to Munich because Barbara was there. And he really enjoyed going out with her because she understood him. Because she was as famous in her way as he was in his. So she understood what he felt like when he went out. The thing is, they were poles apart. Freddie, if he went out, liked being quiet and in the background. Barbara was in your face. They would decide, okay, we want to eat in, her favourite restaurant. Okay, but we haven't reserved. Oh, don't worry. She just goes in and says to the maitre d', I want my table, that one there. And they would move people off the table so that she could walk in and sit at her table. but Freddie would have to follow behind, hoping that nobody was looking. They got on so very, very, very well. Theirs was, you know, Mary and Freddie had a special relationship, something that nobody else ever had with Freddie, the relationship he had with Mary. But you could also say the same for Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
They had a relationship that was like no other. Mac, who was the producer for Mr. Bad Guy, and I dreaded him going to the studio because we would arrive always, and this was Queen, and it's sensible. The studio day starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's pointless saying, okay, we'll meet at 10, because nobody would be there. And a singer will not sing at 10 o'clock in the morning. So 2 o'clock, fine. And Mac and I, once we'd arrived, Mac and I would just look at each other, look at watches, and Freddie would start working. And yes, sure as anything, the telephone would go. It's Barbara, can I speak to Freddie? I'm bored, I'm going to go out. So Freddie says, well, wait for me, I'm coming. And work would stop, and he would go off for the afternoon, evening. The only times we knew that he would get some work done, 100%, was when Barbara would have a milk day, which basically meant no drugs, no alcohol.
Which was once a month.
No, generally once a week. But she would only drink milk, because it was healthy. Doesn't mind about brandy for the other 6 days, but that's grapes, fruit salad. Yeah, Fasching.
That was Fasching. And
Yeah.
funny story, all of you within the entourage and the band members and the crew members, all of you had drag names, right?
Mm-hmm.
What? What was yours?
Phoebe.
Phoebe.
Because, well, the thing is, this was something created by Freddie and Elton John back in '75. A theatrical tradition in Britain was that all males had a female name. So what they tried to do was to come up with the name that matched the surname, be it an actress or a singer. So, I mean, mine couldn't, because there was nobody called Freestone that Freddie knew. So he just felt that Phoebe fitted well with Freestone. So I got that. Elton's name was, it's too hard to explain, but his name was Sharon, or still is Sharon. Because, again, there was Olivia Newton-John, but that was not then. But so basically it was where he came from. It just
So there was a Sharon John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also because it was Sharon from Pinner, this area of Britain. Freddie was Melina Mercury.
Greek opera singer, right? No?
Actress.
Actress.
Yeah. Brian May was Maggie. Maggie May.
The Rod Stewart song, right?
Yeah. What was Roger Taylor's name?
Well, I would guess Elizabeth, right?
Liz. Yeah.
Liz. That was obvious.
Yeah.
And John? Did he have one?
Yeah. Okay. This one again is an explanation. He was called Belisha. Mainly because, again, Freddie couldn't think of anybody with Deacon as a surname. And in Britain, you know the crossings on streets, you know,
Yes.
the black and white stripes. And in the corners, each side of the road, there was this sort of metal pole with an orange light on top
Yes.
that was flashing.
Yeah.
Those were Belisha beacons. So it became Belisha Deacon.
Oh, that's clever. I remember one that I find particularly hilarious. I think it was in your book. and I can't remember who it was, but apparently it was someone from within the recording industry, some of Freddie's singer colleagues, one that has earned so many silver discs or golden discs. I don't know, was it Cliff Richard maybe? And
Yeah.
what was the story behind that name? And
Well,
what was the name?
Sylvia. Because he
Sylvia disc.
Yeah, because he had so many silver discs, not gold or platinum, but silver, 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 silver. So he was Sylvia disc.
That's hilarious.
But you see, this is the thing. You actually needed a brain to work these things out.
Yeah.
And Freddie had that. I never, in 12 years, saw him reading a book. Never once. But he was the most well-educated, intelligent person that I've met. Mm-hmm. I mean, he would read Architectural Digest and auction catalogues, and that was about it. That was the extent. He had a very, very low boredom threshold. He was very, very easy for him to get bored.
I think there was, referring to this picture, is a story from Munich where the three of you went to the cinema for the Never-Ending Story, right?
Yeah, there was a few more than three of us. It was a big group of people from the bars, and we all went to the Never-Ending Story. And Freddie, he doesn't usually go to the cinema. That wasn't something he did. But he agreed when he was asked, why don't you come to the cinema? We're going to go and see this Never-Ending Story. And Freddie knew of this film because a friend of his, Limal, had done the title track. Mm-hmm. And so Freddie says, okay, yeah, let's go, we go. And it started, and everything was in German. Because Freddie expected it to be in English. And the thing is, there was a funny bit, and all the group people were laughing. And he really seriously thought that they were laughing at him because he didn't understand it. And so he just grabbed my hand and we left. I mean, his car was outside anyway, so we just went back. But I really felt for him at that point. Because because he didn't understand a word, he just felt that they were laughing at him because he didn't understand.
So that means you obviously never heard Freddie speak a word of German while he was living in Germany.
One or two words. But not
can imagine what that was.
Repeat.
Yeah. And coming back to Barbara, I mean, she was a pretty famous German actress at the time. I think she passed away already in the early 2000s, I believe. 2003?
2003, I think.
Yeah. And early 2000s.
Yeah. And maybe 2005.
And she's been working with Rainer Werner Fassbinder, for example, Fassbinder, and...
She started off in the 50s.
Exactly.
With
Brigitte Bardot
and running around with everything shown. Well, almost. No, never everything showing, but looking as though it would. She did those films. Then she did Fassbinder.
And there were a couple of movies that I fondly remember from the 1980s. So stuff like Im Himmel ist die Hölle los, maybe some of you remember. Gaia Valley is another one. And there was one that I very fondly remember. It's called Geld oder Leber from 1986 with Mike Krüger in the leading role. Maybe you remember that one. And of course that was the time when Freddie and Barbara were pretty close. So do you remember, did you ever watch any of these movies together?
No.
Why not?
No. It would take up bar time. I remember watching something on the Bloody Island, Blutiger Insel.
Okay.
I don't
remember that one.
I've got a photograph at home.
Yeah.
Because on a wall which she used as an office in Stolbergstrasse, she had posters of about 10, 12 of her films, which was interesting. Also,
the ones she was proud of, obviously.
Yes.
Geld oder Leber might not fall into that category.
The one that I did see and actually had English subtitles
Oh yeah.
was a cow in New York or something. She won.
Sounds interesting.
No, who was in it? Kurt Raab, and he was in New York. She was in New York, taking care of a cow because he'd won it. But she was dressed in Bavarian outfit for the whole film. I mean, it was strange, but it was good. But she used to do all these TV shows and everything.
Yeah.
With Elizabeth Falkman.
Elisabeth Volkmann, yes. Stimme von Marge Simpson, the first Marge Simpson voice, German.
I mean, they did a lot of work together.
Yeah.